The live show is a little bit later than usual, so we have our late night setting. Hopefully, y'all like that. We try to set different moods and different atmospheres for different times of the day. So whenever we go on live earlier, everything will be more lit up. But since we went on later, this is more of a laid back, late night type of atmosphere and situation. I know pretty much all of you already hit the like button, but just as a friendly reminder, please hit the like button. It helps these videos get suggested, and whenever that happens, it hits the YouTube algorithm. More people come, so it grows the audience. It helps me, but it also helps you with the conversation in the comments section. So please hit the like button. Helps the video a lot. Now, I will say this. Tonight is not a call-in. We do those on Tuesdays and Thursdays, but I'm always open to change. I might change my mind later on. So I try to leave things open to where it's not, set in stone. So we'll see what happens. But anyways, if you have any comments or questions, or you're confused about something, or you want to brag about your team or make fun of your rival, or you want to make fun of me, hey, best way to get our attention is the super chat button. It's the little dollar sign surrounded by a heart down on the bottom right hand corner under the comments section. Anything you put in that super chat will go on the screen right where you see gold and blue dude, and it helps support the channel. It helps us keep doing this. This is what we do full time every single day: college football, regular videos, and these live shows. It's gotten to where we pretty much do a live show every single day now, and stuff like that is what helps. Now, I'm already seeing in the comments section some discussion about the title of the video. And me and Joey actually talked about it a little bit before we went live. And maybe the part that I whenever you're thinking about what you want to write or what you want to say, and it doesn't quite come out the way that you want to. I think that's what happened with this title, because it's not a 60 million payout per team TV deal. The TV deal in and of itself with Fox and ESPN, I don't know what the ratio is around 35 million. This is counting everything like the streaming services and some other things, but still 60 million, that's a pretty good payout. And that can definitely rival the ACC and the Pac-12. Right now, the Big 12 is in the situation where they're really not going to be able to compete with the Big Ten or the SEC whenever it comes to paying out their members. There really is nobody in the Big 12 that's worth $100 million a year, which is what each member of those conferences will end up getting paid per team. And the Big 12 just doesn't have that. The members don't bring that. So our objective, the Big 12's objective, isn't to try to, mimic the SEC or the Big Ten. Our objective is to be better than the Pac-12 and the ACC. And I think with these negotiations, they are accomplishing that. I think the Big 12 will have the higher payouts. I think the Big 12 could possibly, I'm not a fortune teller, so I don't know all this stuff for sure, but the Big 12 could possibly be the most attractive conference outside of the Big 10 and the SEC. And this is all, looking in the future, because we all know this. I mean, it's not happening right now, but we all know this. There's not going to be 5 power conferences that will exist going forward whenever everybody splits off from the ACC or the NCAA, excuse me. I don't even think there's going to be 4. I think there's going to be 3. You're going to have the SEC, you're going to have the Big 10, and then you're going to have whoever survives out of the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC. That's what it comes down to. Now, the biggest question, I think, is, does the SEC and the Big 10 go after more? I think the answer to that question is yes. Without a doubt, they're going to go after more. So the next question after that is, who are they going to get teams out of the Pac-12? I don't think the SEC is going to get anybody out of the Pac-12. That's just my opinion. I do think the Big 10 could get more teams out of the Pac-12, but I don't think the SEC is going to touch the Pac-12. Big 12 is fair game to everybody. I know that's kind of scary language, but it is. They got some good brands in there. The geography would match. It would make it worth it, however you want to word it. But really, the conference that's in the most danger, and it's kind of it's kind of weird because the reason they're in danger is because they have the brands that are the most valuable. They're not in danger because they're the weaker conference. They're actually in danger because they have the most enticing brands. They have the Clemsons, they have the Florida States, they have the Miamis, they have the Virginia Techs, even the Syracuse. Syracuse is valuable. So out of the Pac-12, the Big 12, and the ACC, the reason the ACC is the most vulnerable is because they have the biggest brands. And if they cannot find a way to pay those big brands, the ACC is doomed. However, there is hope for the ACC because they do have those big brands. So they do have some sort of leverage. The big question is, can they start making smart decisions? Can the ACC start making smart decisions? Because Swanson, the commissioner before Jim Phillips, royally screwed the ACC with those. Well, the grant of rights actually helped the ACC because it locked the teams in. But the TV deal is what screwed the ACC. I don't know what all went into that. Was there a vote on that? Because how were these brands okay with that TV deal and then signing the grant of rights knowing that they were locked in that TV deal? That's a terrible TV deal. Even, as far back as it was signed, it was bad. It was terrible. So that's one thing that's kind of a puzzle to me. I'm trying to figure that out, but I don't know. The deal's bad. The grant of rights is massive. In order to lead the ACC, $500 million per team. That's ridiculous, but it is what it is. And that's the only thing that's keeping the ACC together. It really is. I guarantee you that if those grant of rights were, let me put a figure on it. Well, let's say they rival the Big 12s, right? Big 12 is around 80 million, right? If it rivaled that, then I think a lot of these teams would be gone. 80 million, okay, we're gone. Now, the year 2036, that would hurt them as well because that would hurt the conference because the conference wouldn't be able to make any money off the team because they would still be locked into those grant of rights. So it's two separate issues. The buyout's massive and the grant of rights are locked in until 2036. So even if a conference or a team did come up with that amount of money and they were like, see ya, well, then the conference that team would be going to still wouldn't be able to make money off that team until 2036 because of the grant of rights. So that's a double-edged sword right there. And that's why a lot of people are, focused on hoping that the loophole is to vote out the grant of rights. I think the majority vote is 8, which is roughly around 55, 60%, something like that. So it's barely a majority, but it is a majority vote. In order for that to happen, well, this is my opinion. I don't know what's going to happen. But in order for the grant of rights to be voted, to get enough votes to dissolve, what needs to happen would be these conferences that they would be jumping to would have to, for sure, say, hey, you have a spot. You vote to dissolve, you have a spot. I don't know if they would, throw money on the table or what. I don't know all the other stuff. But basically, they would have to 100% guarantee them, you have a spot. If you vote to dissolve, you're coming. The SEC could tell, Clemson, Florida State, maybe Duke in North Carolina, or maybe Virginia Tech, whoever. Hey, you vote to dissolve, you have a spot. We promise. And then maybe the SEC could work with the Big Ten and say, hey, you can have these guys, guarantee their spot, and get them to vote. And then maybe the Big 12 steps in and say, we'll take Louisville, Pitt, Syracuse, and NC State. Tell them, hey, you vote to dissolve, you have a guaranteed spot. You could actually probably get over 8. That's just my rationale. I don't know if it'll happen. What I'm hearing from ACC fan bases is they love the ACC. They just don't love the money. They're seeing these other conferences getting these huge payouts, especially the bigger teams like your Clemson, Florida States, Miami's, North Carolina's, and so on and so forth. Seeing, somebody like, a Rutgers, Maryland, a Northwestern, they're going to be getting paid $100 million. the new teams coming in, they might get an unequal share for a while, but the teams that are already in, they're getting the full payout. They are getting the full payout. And another rumor that I heard today, I haven't confirmed this like through multiple sources yet, but I thought it was interesting to bring up is, well, I mentioned a while back that ESPN and the ACC are talking about renegotiating the TV deal for a shorter span, but a little bit bigger of a payout. Well, what I'm hearing now is that some of the bigger brands want an unequal share, kind of like what we see going on in the Pac-12. Oregon, Washington, who was it? Oregon, Washington. Maybe it was just Oregon and Washington. They wanted like a 16.6, and then the next level 13.3, and then the bottom level 6.6. So the bigger brands get the bigger share, and then it trickles down after that. What I'm hearing is the ACC, the teams within the ACC are kind of, starting to want that as well. Well, hey, we're the ones making you money. We should get a bigger percentage. And I totally get that. I totally get that. But still, that's dangerous waters for the ACC. So there's a lot of what ifs going on. I just try to figure out, the most plausible scenario, what avenues are possible. And sometimes, here's the crazy thing. The reason I make so many videos on this is sometimes the avenue that you're like, yeah, I'll talk about it, but that'll never happen. That's exactly what happens. Like USC and UCLA. Some people talked about it, but they're like, I just don't see it happening because they're, way out there. They say they love the Pac-12, blah, 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 blah. And that's exactly what happened. I made a couple of videos on that as well. So you never know what's going to happen. And maybe that one scenario that I was like, I don't think this is going to happen, but I'll do a video on it anyways. That might be exactly what happens. So that's why I do what I do. But I will explain my background one more time as far as the way it looks right now. So my live shows, I do them whenever I can. We're not on a set schedule. That's going to change, actually. We're not going to do the same time every day, but we'll do the same time on Mondays. Just for example, we haven't nailed out the times yet. Okay, this is just for example. So say on Mondays we do 7. So on Mondays it'll be 7 o'clock every Monday, 7 o'clock. Tuesdays, maybe we choose 5 o'clock. So Tuesdays, 5 o'clock every Tuesday. So the times will still change from day to day, but whatever day of the week will be that time. I think that'll be a little bit more consistent. I think, will be more reliable as far as, people getting notified. I think that's our biggest problem right now. YouTube not notifying. Maybe it's our crazy schedule that's doing that. So we'll try to ease up on that and nail down some times. But as far as, why is it so dark in here and it's backlit? Well, we're trying to set different moods. So if I go live earlier, whenever it's light, you're going to see everything, nice and bright and energetic, full throttle, ready to go. But the later we do a live show, we want to kind of, late night. We're late night, kind of take it easy, take things slow, still talk about things that we love to talk about, but, kind of set the mood type of situation. I saw some questions in the comment section asking about the backlighting. So I'm always thinking of different ways to just try to be different. That's the thing about YouTube. There's a lot of college football YouTube channels out there, a lot. So you have to find little different things that make your show or your videos different. So we'll try different things like that. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it's, that's too bright for me or that's too dark for you, we'll find a happy medium for everybody. But I do like this for the late night, so we'll probably keep it like this. Maybe more of an overhead on my face because I am a little, silhouette. We'll call this silhouette golden bluted. How about that? How's everybody doing? How's y'all's week going? Hump day. Yesterday, I went back and watched the live show, and I didn't realize this. Yesterday, whenever I did the live show, I said, the working man got through their Monday. And, for me, I don't have a Monday, Friday, Saturday, whatever, because I do this every day. Well, I literally proved my point because yesterday was Tuesday. It wasn't Monday. But because it all runs together, because I do the same thing every day, for some reason, my brain was still on Monday. So I went back and watched it. I was like, oh, well, it's done. I guess everybody will have another good laugh at Golden Blue's expense. That's why you got to have thick skin to do this stuff, guys. You really do. Yeah, we'll find some front lighting for my face as well. But for tonight, we'll go with this. We'll definitely go with this. And don't forget, for this Big 12 TV deal, from what I'm hearing, there is an escalator clause. So there's a built-in clause, or there will be a built-in clause for expansion. It's called the escalator clause. You bring in more brands, we'll renegotiate, expand that, so the money stays even. But you have to be careful with that, because you want to make sure that you bring in brands that's going to add to the pie. You don't want to bring in brands that's just going to make more pieces of the pie and then everybody gets less. You want to bring in somebody that's going to add value. That way the pie actually grows and everybody makes more money. So that's one thing to keep your eyes at. Look, these conferences aren't going to be adding teams just to be adding teams for numbers, because that'll mean less, payout for everybody else. They're going to be looking for the teams that add value. That's why whenever I heard the announcement, and it was all over social media, I even did a couple videos on it, where the Big 12 was interested in the Four Corners. I understood Utah and Arizona State, but Colorado didn't make any sense, because right now Colorado is struggling. I know the biggest argument for Colorado is the Denver TV market, but we've talked about this 1,000 times. Denver is a pro sports market. They really don't care about Colorado. I mean, I hate to put it so bluntly, but it is what it is. It's kind of like whenever the ACC got Boston College, they thought they were going to get the Boston TV market. No, Boston is also a pro sports town, so that did not work out very well. Now, the what do you call this? The payout per viewer is higher in Boston, in the city of Boston, but you still have to get some viewers, and not a lot of people care in Boston, so it didn't equal out. It hurt the ACC. I think if there was one decision that if the ACC could go back in time and redo, they would definitely switch out Boston College for West Virginia. I can almost guarantee that, because Boston College has not worked out well in the ACC. They haven't had much success. They're not making hardly any money for the ACC. So it's almost like they're an albatross around the neck of the ACC. Not a good decision, but you live and learn, right? That got me to thinking. Whenever all these conferences, past realignment, not future realignment, we're talking about past now. The conferences, the way they are, the new members of these conferences. So don't count the members that are already in the conferences, but the new members that they brought in. Who do you think that these conferences regret the most? Like, man, we shouldn't have done that. It looked like a good idea, but man, we shouldn't have done it. Because, and the reason I'm asking that, in the future, I think there's going to be more decisions like that, where it seems like a good idea at the time, but it's going to turn out it's not. Will ND, thank you for the $1.99 donation, says, the Patriots not good as soon as BC joined the ACC. Or got good, excuse me. The Patriots got good as soon as BC joined the ACC. Yes, that also hurt, because at the time that Boston College joined the ACC, the Patriots weren't good. I mean, they were okay, but they weren't the Patriots that we know now. And Patriots are falling again. But, during the dynasty period, the Patriots were just starting to be that way. So at least you still had a football market that you could compete with. There were still the Bruins, the Red Sox, the Celtics, all the professional teams in Boston. But you still had a chance in the football market, because the Patriots weren't great. Well, as soon as Boston College joins the ACC, Patriots dynasty. So there went that avenue. So I never thought of that. That's a good one right there, Will indeed. That's a great comment, actually. Great comment. Good job, buddy. But as far as teams that have already joined these conferences as new members, what teams do you think they are regretting the most? Of course, for the ACC, hands down, Boston College, without a doubt. Without a doubt, it's Boston College. You know, Virginia Tech and Miami have been let down as far as success, but I still think that the ACC doesn't regret them because they still have made money. Think about this, guys. Miami, since joining the ACC, has never won the ACC. Never. Who would have thought that whenever they joined the ACC? Everybody thought that Miami was going to absolutely dominate the ACC when they joined. Is there some sort of algorithm or an actual explanation as to why Miami has done so poorly in the ACC? Because I can't figure it out. They still have a great brand. They're the U. They have lost some of their swag, I will say that. But they recruit at a decent level. What is it with Miami not being able to win the ACC? It's crazy. It's crazy. Ferris, thank you for the $1.99 donation. Will Michigan beat Ohio State this year? Thoughts? No, I do not think so. It's a road game. If it were at Michigan, I would give it a chance. But if I had to put a percentage on it, I would give Notre Dame probably about a 35% chance of winning at Ohio State. I think there's a chance, but I don't think it happens. I think Ohio State wins. But I also think that Penn State could beat Ohio State in Happy Valley. I think, Michigan's already beat Penn State, right? I think Penn State could beat Ohio State in Happy Valley, and then Ohio State beats Michigan in the Horseshoe. I think it really could turn out that way and I've talked to a lot of people the past week or so about this. There's nobody dominant in college football this year. So really, there's probably about 10 teams that can legitimately win the national championship. Over the past 4 years, it was maybe 2 or 3, but we kind of knew who was going to win it. In 2018, it was Clemson, 2019, LSU, 2020, Alabama, and 2021, Georgia. They were head and shoulders the dominant team. But there's always the hope that, an upset could happen. But a clear favorite. This year, who's the clear favorite? It's definitely not Alabama. Before the start of the season, I thought it was going to be Alabama. I thought Alabama was going to dominate the season because they had everybody coming back from the offense. The defense wasn't great last year, so I was expecting them to take a massive step forward. It didn't happen. And, of course, they lost at Tennessee. Georgia looks beatable. They had bad games against Kent State, Missouri. Their defense did take that step back that I was expecting. Their offense does look pretty good, but they look beatable, right? Tennessee just beat Alabama, but, Alabama committed 17 penalties. So if that game gets played 10 times, even in Knoxville, I still think Alabama wins 5 times. I think it's a 50-50 split in Knoxville. If it's played 10 times in Tuscaloosa, I think Alabama wins it 8 or 9 times out of 10. So, Alabama played a really, really sloppy game, and Tennessee's undefeated, but they have to go on the road to Georgia. UCLA is one game away from being a legitimate playoff contender. One, and that's the road trip to Oregon, the game this Saturday. Game day is going to be there. Number 11 versus number 10. It is a road trip for UCLA. That was an impressive win over Utah. They didn't just barely beat Utah. They beat them soundly. They didn't blow them out, but they beat them soundly. So I think UCLA has a chance to go on the road to beat Oregon. And if that happens, UCLA is going to gain some momentum and some steam as far as people, talking about them being in the playoffs. Seriously. And I've had UCLA in my top 25 since week number 1. Week 1. And I got made fun of it. What are you thinking, Golden Blue? They got decimated on the lines of scrimmage. Yeah, but that's not how Chip Kelly wins. If you look at his success at Oregon, he recruited weekly on the lines of scrimmage, but his skill players, his quarterback, his cornerbacks and safeties were always strong. And I saw that in this team. And it's not like he was coming off a terrible year and they were coming out of nowhere. Last year, they were 8-4. Okay, so
to me, I was thinking that they were going to be better than that team and then they were going to build upon that team. So I had them in my preseason top 20, got laughed at, made fun of, and I had them in my top 15 before anybody else got made fun of for that. And UCLA just keeps winning. They beat an undefeated Washington who was on fire at the time. And yes, Washington has taken a slight step back now. They have slid out of the rankings. But at the time, Washington was red hot. And then they beat Utah at home. Utah just beat USC at home. I know it was by 1 point, and I know it was because they, successfully converted a 2-point conversion, but a win is a win is a win. So that win for UCLA is looking better and better. I think UCLA has a decent shot of going on the road and beating Oregon. I really do. Do I think it's going to happen? Not really. But if that happens, man, the talk behind UCLA getting into the playoffs is going to go through the roof because their toughest game remaining after that is USC at home. I know that they don't support their team, but that's a rivalry game. You better believe there's going to be a lot more UCLA fans attend that game than any other game. I still think it's going to be like a 70-30 split. I think USC will have a ton of fans in there, but UCLA fans will show up for that game for sure. For sure. Yeah, USC was in control of that game against Utah for a while, and I thought they were going to win, but that was a very gutsy call by Utah there at the end to go for the win and go for the 2-point conversion. I was like, in the back of my mind, I was like, man, Utah's going to do all that work, and then they missed this 2-point conversion and they still lose. But they got it. The gamble paid off. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. I see Clint Moses saying UCLA beats Ducks. Wouldn't that be something? But I said the same thing whenever, right before Washington. Wouldn't it be something if they beat Washington? I predicted they would. But then Utah, I wasn't so sure. I wasn't so sure about that one. It happened. So I'm not counting them out. UCLA's offense looks great, and their defense isn't a liability. It's not great, but it's okay. It's okay. And when you have an elite offense, an okay defense is good enough most of the time. But yes, they do rely heavily on the offense. My preseason prediction for UCLA was 10-2. That's almost a lock now. It really is because their two toughest games at Oregon and USC. The rest of their schedule, let me look at. I have to look at this now. I have to look because a lot of people called me crazy for saying that they were going to go 10-2. Crap. There we go. 1 second, guys. All right, so I'm going to do it like this. Their remaining games versus the games that they've already played, all right? So their remaining games, they get at Oregon. That is probably going to be one of their losses if they do lose. Stanford at home, at Arizona State. Excuse me. That doesn't look like a tough game anymore because Arizona State is not good. Arizona at home, that's probably a win. So the only game that could throw off my prediction is the game there at the end at Cal because Cal somehow beats teams they shouldn't. But then this past week, they lost to Colorado. That should never, ever happen. Colorado was losing to teams by 23 or more points. Their closest loss was to Arizona by 23. Everybody else, they got blown out by 25 or more. So the fact that Colorado beat Cal is a minor miracle. The games that they've already played, cake except for the last two. Not going to lie. Bowling Green, Alabama State, South Alabama at Colorado, and they barely beat South Alabama. But South Alabama is looking pretty good. But they beat Washington, and then Utah. They're coming off a bye week, but so is Oregon. This is going to be a big game. And the question is, if UCLA does lose on the road to Oregon, can they shake it off and not let that beat them again and come back strong and beat Stanford, Arizona State, and Arizona 3 wins in a row before they host USC? That's the biggest question. Because that's exactly what happened to Miami. Miami had a golden opportunity to go on the road and get a massive win over a struggling but still top 25 Texas A&M, and statistically, Miami dominated Texas A&M on the road. They just couldn't score touchdowns. What happened? Couldn't get that loss out of their head. They go on to lose to Middle Tennessee, and then they go on to lose to North Carolina. And then this past week, they barely beat Virginia Tech on the road. This is the same Virginia Tech that West Virginia went on the road and absolutely demolished. And West Virginia has a terrible, terrible defense. So they even struggled against a bad Virginia Tech. Beat them, but still struggled. When are they going to be able to get that Texas A&M loss out of their heads? I don't know, because Miami does have a good defense. I think it's top 20 as far as a scoring defense. It's their offense. I don't know what happened, because Tyler Van Dyke was a preseason Heisman Trophy favorite. So I don't know what happened to their offense. Maybe there's some injuries that I'm not aware of. Do I have any Miami subscribers in the chat? Because I'm trying to figure out what happened to that Miami offense. The defense is what's carrying this team right now. It's a top 20 defense, but the offense, who I thought would be the strength of this team, is like 62nd or 63rd, I think, in scoring points per game. It's not looking good. It's not looking good for Miami. Quick spoiler alert. Since I try to give certain advantages to the people that come to the live shows, because we appreciate your support. So a little spoiler for everybody in the live show tonight. We will be doing a prediction video for Syracuse Clemson, and this will be the video where I go to the stadium. Every year I pick a game and I do a pre-recorded video in front of the stadium. The first year I know for sure it was Georgia Tech. I can't remember who it was last year. Crap. I'll have to go back and watch. But I was going to try to do it for NC State, but that day was kind of busy. But for sure, Syracuse. And it kind of worked out, because Syracuse is undefeated. Clemson's still undefeated. So it's still a big game. I kind of lucked out on that one. And for whatever reason, even when Syracuse is bad, they play Clemson pretty good. If this were in the Dome, I would be worried for Clemson. I really would, because Syracuse has looked very strong in the Dome. I know they've won on the road as well, but they've looked even better in the Dome. But the fact that this is at Clemson, I think Clemson does win comfortably, but don't overlook Syracuse by any means. Not at all. They are a good team. They are capable of upsetting Clemson, and you're kind of lucky that you got them in the Valley this year. I think they're a good team. So now that we have big-time parity in college football this year, I'm going to ask you guys in the comments section. All right, so we're on to, what week is it? I think it's week 7 or week 8. Oh, let me double check. I don't want to misquote myself. All right, so hold on. There we go. Score. So we are on week 8. All right, we are on week 8. So week 8, a lot of parity going on. I'm going to put you on the spot, guys. I'm going to put you on the spot. All right. Who's your 4 playoff teams? I know there's a lot of games to be played, and one game can blow up your playoffs or change things. But right now, who do you think makes the playoffs? No, I'm not even necessarily asking who you think the 4 best teams are, because sometimes one of the best teams slips up. Maybe Alabama loses in the SEC championship, and we all thought they were going to make the playoffs. But who do you think gets to the playoffs this year? And I'm very interested to see your response on this one. I'm even thinking myself who I think gets into the playoffs. Well, I do think that the winner of Michigan and Ohio State will solidify a spot, because the Big Ten West is not good right now. Not good at all. Scotty B, the Baylor King, says Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, and Michigan. Oh, he's got 2 SEC East teams going in. And that's not a bad pick, because even if Georgia does beat Tennessee and Tennessee doesn't go to the SEC championship, and Tennessee wins the rest of their games, I think they have a legitimate shot. Just ask 2017 Alabama. All right, it's very possible. Let's see here. Nick Danger says Tennessee, Clemson, Michigan, and TCU. So he has a Big 12 team coming in. Let's see. Larry Pilgrim says Georgia, Ohio State, Clemson, and USC. So that's still possible. USC needs to win out now, though. They can't afford another loss. Wet Blanket says Michigan, Georgia, Clemson, Alabama. I think that's probably the most common answer right there. The comment by Wet Blanket. But for me, so like I mentioned earlier, the winner between Michigan and Ohio State will solidify a spot because I think the winner of the Big Ten East wins the Big Ten because Big Ten West is a joke. But the biggest question is, does Ohio State get beat by Penn State? Doesn't really matter because they would still have one loss. Ohio State, short answer, Ohio State. I think even if Ohio State loses to Penn State, they still beat Michigan and they win the Big Ten. So I have Ohio State in. The next team I have in is Clemson. Okay? Their toughest road trips already done. At Wake Forest, at Florida State. They survived. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter how much they won by. They won. Of course, they took care of NC State whenever NC State still had their starting quarterback by 10 points. That's a win. I do think they'll take care of Syracuse, and I do think that they will win out. Not just win the ACC. I think they win out and win the ACC. So I have Ohio State in, and I have Clemson in. All right, let's jump over to the SEC. This is where it gets tricky. Really, really tricky. There's a couple of questions here. Number one, do we have a one-loss or an undefeated Pac-12 champion? Number two, do we have a one-loss or undefeated Big 12 champion? If so, those two can grab a spot. The SEC champion gets in no matter what. So I guess the question that I'm trying to answer is who wins the SEC? Who wins the SEC? I don't think Alabama wins the SEC this year. I think Alabama flat out misses the playoffs this year. I know that's crazy to think about, but they just lost to Tennessee. Maybe they still get to the SEC championship, but I don't think they're winning it. So Alabama's not out. Tennessee, I think Tennessee loses to Georgia and probably picks up another fluky loss somewhere. So I think they're out. I don't think they make the ACC championship. I think they're out. Georgia has home field advantage against Tennessee, so I think they win that game. And I think Georgia is better than Alabama. So even if Alabama does get to the SEC championship, Georgia, I'm locking you in. So I have Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia. Oh, that's boring, right? It's kind of what everybody's picking. But that fourth spot, this year, I don't think the SEC gets two teams in. Not because they're all of a sudden a bad league or anything like that. No. I do think that one of the champions of either the Pac-12 or the Big 12 will either be undefeated or have one loss. And an undefeated or one-loss Pac-12 or Big 12 champion trumps a one-loss non-SEC champion. So I'm going back and forth. Is it going to be the Pac-12 champ or is it going to be the Big 12 champ? In order to answer that question, which conference is tougher? Hands down, the Big 12 is tougher than the Pac-12. So I think the champion of the Big 12 is going to pick up multiple losses. So the strength of the conference is actually the undoing as far as not making the playoffs. Ergo, I'm saying that the champion of the Pac-12 conference makes the playoffs. Who is that champion? That's the biggest question. It could be, well, it can't be Utah because they already have two losses. So they're out of the equation, right? So it's either, wait, does Oregon still have? Hold on. I need to keep up better with these standings for moments just like this. All right, so we have UCLA, of course, undefeated. Oregon 5-1. USC 5-1. So it comes down to these three. All right. So we look at UCLA. I still think UCLA finishes 10-2. So I'm going to rule them out immediately. Great season though. Great season. They could still finish in the top 15. Great season, but I'm rolling you out, UCLA. So this comes down to Oregon and USC. And whenever making this decision, I'm looking at the remaining schedule. And of course, Oregon, they did get blown out by Georgia, but that was the first game of the year. If you're going to lose, that's when you want to lose. Toughest game remaining. The home game against UCLA. You also get a home game against Utah. I think you win that as well. At Cal, you win. At Colorado, you win. Washington home, win. Utah at home, win. At Oregon State, that's the only game that I think could trip them up. So let me go back and look at USC's real quick. Then I'll make my decision. It's going to come down to that one game. Let me make sure I agree with myself, basically, is what I'm saying, what I'm trying to say. All right, so remaining schedule for USC. At Arizona, that's a win. Cal, that's a win. Colorado, that's a win. At UCLA, I think that's a win. I think that's one of UCLA's losses. And Notre Dame, that's a win. So I think it's going to end up being USC and Oregon in the Pac-12 championship, both with 1 losses. So the team that I have in my 4th and final spot, Oregon. I'm going with Oregon. I just think Oregon has just a little bit better of a defense. I think both offenses are very similar. It could go back and forth. This is going to be a great building year for USC. USC is going to go to a New Year's Six Bowl. Even UCLA, I mean, there might be a couple teams in the Pac-12 that go to a New Year's Six Bowl. But I just think that Oregon is looking like the better team. And, I anticipate them beating UCLA at home. I think USC, it's that last game at Oregon State that has me concerned with Oregon, but I think they get the job done. So my 4 teams that I have in the playoffs are Ohio State, Clemson, Georgia, and Oregon. I think the Pac-12 finally gets represented. But if Oregon State trips up Oregon in that last game, then it could be USC. But I'm sticking with Oregon for right now. I think the Ducks finally make it into the playoffs. Seeding, I think Clemson is going to be undefeated. I actually think Georgia might pick up a loss either on the road to Mississippi State or Kentucky, but that's fine. They'll have the tiebreaker over Tennessee, and they'll still win the SEC. So your number 1 seed is probably going to be either Ohio State or Clemson. I'm going to go Clemson. I say Clemson will be the 1 seed, Georgia the 2 seed, Ohio State the 3 seed, and Oregon the 4 seed. So you're going to have Clemson, Oregon in one game, and then you're going to have Georgia, Ohio State. I think that would set up to be a heck of a playoff. I hope that happens. I hope that happens. And even if you swap out Oregon for USC, I mean, you have Clemson and USC, and then Georgia and Ohio State. I think that would be a moneymaker for the playoffs. I think they would want that to happen. All 4 of those brands have big time fan bases. Even if you swap out Oregon for USC, you're going to have a packed out fan. Could you imagine? I haven't looked at it yet, so I don't know if the Rose Bowl is part of the rotation this year. But if the Rose Bowl is part of the rotation this year, number 1, could you imagine if USC makes the playoffs and gets to play in the Rose Bowl? Or number 2, UCLA makes the playoffs and gets to play in their home stadium in the Rose Bowl? Absolutely would be mind-blowing, amazing. And I actually do think it's in the rotation because last year the Rose Bowl was Utah and Ohio State. It was a New Year's Six Bowl. So I think this is the year that it gets rotated in. I could be wrong, so don't set that in stone. I could be wrong, but I think the Rose Bowl is going to be part of the rotation of the playoffs this year. And if USC and UCLA get in, and can somehow get the bid for the Rose Bowl in the playoffs, wow, you talk about a magic moment. That would be a magic moment. But there's a bigger magical moment that I'm waiting on that I can't wait. We will always remember whenever it finally does happen, and that's whenever the playoffs expand to 12 teams, and the first round is going to be home playoff games. Even if they somehow scrap it and go to 16 teams, home playoff games, this should have been done for a while now. It's the only major sport that doesn't do home playoff games, and college football by far has the best home field advantage of any major sport. Why we haven't been doing this for a while, I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't. So whenever that comes, hopefully it's 2024, like Jim Phillips says, everybody's pushing. But even if it's 2026, that's not that far away. Biggest question, guys, think about this. Biggest question. Who will host the first on-campus playoff game? And I'm sure there's probably some odds, some type of odds that Vegas has as far as who's going to host the first playoff game. So it's probably something you can actually bet on right now, and I would be interested to see who they have as some of their choices. That would be crazy. But going back to playoffs real quick, if the only way that I can see the Big 12 making it in is if somehow TCU can survive the regular season with one loss and wins the Big 12, or if Oklahoma State wins out, including the Big 12 championship, and their only loss is the TCU, who they have a rematch with in the Big 12 championship, then the Big 12 does have a chance. But I'm telling you, top to bottom, as far as a tough conference, I think the Big 12 is the toughest conference right now. West Virginia is arguably the worst team in the Big 12, and they just beat Baylor. The worst team in the Big 12 is going to be tough to beat in Morgantown. So Morgantown could be a trip-up spot for some of these playoff hopefuls, because this next game for West Virginia is a road trip to Texas Tech. Right after that, we get TCU at home. So we do get TCU in Morgantown this year. Last game of the year, we have to go on the road to Oklahoma State. So Oklahoma State doesn't have to worry about it. And Oklahoma State has seemed to have West Virginia's number more than TCU. So if you would pick out a team that would be more likely to trip up in Morgantown, it would be without a doubt TCU. Now, TCU's done good against West Virginia, but Oklahoma State has done really well against West Virginia. And, of course, Oklahoma is undefeated. But this year, I have no doubt about it that Oklahoma is going down in Morgantown. We have the better offense. Oklahoma's not all that great. I do think that Oklahoma gets to a bowl, but West Virginia and Oklahoma, they probably will both finish 6-6, just being honest. This is going to be a rebuild year for Oklahoma. And I am going to that game because I cannot miss the first time West Virginia beats Oklahoma in the Big 12. And it's going to happen. It's going to happen. What's Joey saying? He's saying What did you beat them all at? I am so lost. I am so lost. John, you might have a point. Iowa State might be the worst team in the Big 12, but the way their schedule lays out and how tough Ames, Iowa is, their record might not reflect that. And they just went into Austin and barely lost by a field goal to Texas. West Virginia got obliterated. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's arguably, with all these, possibly the worst team. West Virginia could be the worst team. Oklahoma could be the worst team. Iowa State could be the worst team. Texas Tech could arguably be the worst team. We don't really know who the worst team is. There might be like a 3 or 4 way tie at the bottom with all teams being 6-6, all of them going to a bowl. That's how strong this conference is. It's actually crazy. Oh, emojis. I got you. That's why I was confused, because I can't read it through StreamYard. Gotcha. We do have a rough time in Ames, but not as rough as you think. I actually think we have a winning record in Ames, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's 3-2. I could be wrong, but I think it's 3-2. But I never I never like having to go to Ames, Iowa and play Iowa State. I hate those years. I really, really do. But we get Oklahoma at home. I think that gives us an excellent shot to finally beat them. But other than the fact that it'll be our first time beating Oklahoma in the Big 12, or since being in the Big 12, is there really going to be all that much to celebrate? Number one, Oklahoma's not all that great. Number two, we're not all that great. So literally the only thing to celebrate in that win would be we beat Oklahoma for the first time being in the Big 12. So, that's just how it worked out. Jay Glizzy says he had a video idea in the comments section. Hold on, let me scroll up. I'm not seeing it, man. Where did you put it? Oh, here we go. He says, I have a video idea. Let's say Big Ten and Pac-12 merge and ACC and Big 12 merge. If Big Ten and Pac-12 merge and half of ACC goes to the Big 12 and half to the SEC. Oh, so I do think there's a chance that the ACC and Big 12 merge, but I don't think that the Big 10 and the Big 12 merge. I really don't think that's going to happen. But it's an interesting idea, and to be honest with you, I probably will do a video on it because, why not? West Virginia 7-4 against TCU. Yeah, we have fared a lot better against TCU than Oklahoma State, especially recently. Oklahoma State has just had our number. Move to the Sooner. Thank you for the $5 donation. Says, if West Virginia and Oklahoma win out, it is mathematically possible to get into the Big 12 title game. I still have hope. LMBO. He made sure not to cuss in his I can't think what. No. He made sure instead of LMAO, he said LMBO. Good job, buddy. Yeah, that is true, and that still speaks to the volume of how tough the Big 12 is. The worst teams in the Big 12 still have a mathematical possibility of making the Big 12 championship, and as unpredictable as the Big 12 is, you never know. Two teams. Wait, does Oklahoma have 2 or 3 losses? I think they have 3 losses, don't they? Kansas State, TCU. Maybe not. Maybe they only have two losses. West Virginia does have 3 losses. So, the Big 12 championship, 9-3 West Virginia versus 10-2 Oklahoma. And if West Virginia wins, they get to 10 wins. It's kind of like how 2011 went. A 9-3 West Virginia won the Big East, and then they trounced Clemson, and that's how they got their 10 wins. Not the best way you want to get those, but hey, 10-win season is a 10-win season, right? Anyways, I'm going to wrap this up, guys. It's a little bit of a shorter one, a later show, but we'll do more of these later shows, and we'll get more lighting on my face. I still think it's a cool setup. I know some people don't like it, but I like the backlit of the helmets. I think the only knock is you can't really see me all that well, but lighting up the helmets, I really like that. I do. I really like that, and I'm going to get some LED strips. Before we get out of here, let me show y'all something. Hold on. Some of y'all might already know this, but I'm going to tilt this up. So, future plans as far as, I talk about expansion for stadiums and stuff. So, future plans of Golden Bluted. You see that wall all the way to the end of that wall. We're going to run a shelf that's anchored to the wall right above the doors. That's going to be my top 25 shelf. I still haven't made up my mind if it's going to be my top 25 or the actual AP top 25, but it's going to be the top 25 shelf. And then this stadium seating, we're going to stretch it to the edge of that door. That way we'll have enough room for the helmets because we're running out of space. You guys have really sent in a lot of mini helmets. Awesome. Blown me away. I think we have a total. Hold on, let me count. I think we have 3 spots left. As far as the actual stadium shelving, I'll put some down here until we build the new shelves, but we have a total of 3 spots left. Last count, I think we have 45 for 44 mini helmets. There we go. So keep them coming, guys. Keep them coming. Let's represent all the teams. But, of course, I know they are a little bit expensive. So if you want to send a T-shirt, a flag, a sign, whatever you want to send in, let me get the there's the P.O. Box you send it to. P.O. Box 360, Liberty, South Carolina, 29657. Send it there. I get it all the time. A lot of stuff being sent in, and I'm sure there's going to be more mini helmets. But, they do get expensive, so if you want to send something else, that's cool as well. Anyways, let's tilt this back down before we get out of here. So hopefully you guys enjoyed yourself. Like I've always said, I'm not worried about being 100% right. Nobody is. So I actually feel bad for people like that because whenever they're wrong, they're devastated. Oh, man, I'm wrong. I don't want to ever show my face again. Who cares? You're wrong sometimes. So I'm not worried about that. As long as I've talked college football and at least kind of sort of entertain you, I've done my job. So if you forgot about your stresses and troubles just for 5 minutes, then job well done. On to the next. So y'all have a good rest of your hump day. Today is Wednesday, right? Yeah, today is Wednesday. We'll have another live show for you tomorrow. I'm not sure what time because of life, but we'll start nailing down certain time for different days. It's not going to be the same time every day, but it's going to be the same time for every weekday. We will get that figured out, so it'll be more consistent. All right, more consistent. We've been trying to get some sponsors, and that's a major point that they've made to us. So we will adjust to that as well. Anyways, hopefully you've enjoyed yourself. Shout out to everybody that's watching, everybody that's commented. Make sure to hit the like button on the way out, even though we're not going to be live anymore. Everybody that super chatted, appreciate you guys. Every bit that supports the channel, we appreciate you. You guys keep us going. Appreciate you guys. Anyways, y'all have a good rest of your night. We will see you tomorrow. We're just not sure what time.